Hi, I'm Jo from the London Nutritionist, and I'm also the author of the low-fad diet. So today I'm going to give you a look in my fridge because people have been asking me what I actually eat. So I'm about to show you what I keep in my fridge and what I keep in my cupboards. So we're going over to my fridge now. Now, my fridge is actually quite organised at the moment, but it isn't always so organised. But at the top, we've got things like, actually there's a couple of jars of mincemeat at the back there, I've just noticed, which are left over from Christmas. But we've got things like, there's some cranberry sauce as well left over from Christmas. So yeah, perhaps it does need a bit of a clear out. Okay, so we've got things like stem ginger, which I really like putting into overnight oats. In fact, this is the overnight oats from last night, and that's got cherry and stem ginger in it, which is really nice, adds a bit of kick. Then we've got things like, this is my store cupboard salad section. So we've got capers, olives, there's gherkins at the back there, roasted red peppers. Those things are what I add to salads to make them interesting. So rather than just being lettuce, cucumber, tomato, we've got some really interesting flavours in there as well. Mayonnaise, full fat mayonnaise, always full fat mayonnaise. The one that is light or extra light is just full of so much stuff that doesn't look anything like food. So I really like the full fat. I mean, it's branded, but I don't always get the branded ones. But if we look at the ingredients in this, we've got, I don't know if you can see that, but it's rapeseed oil, pasteurised free-range eggs, vinegar, salt, sugar, lemon juice. Now there's also an antioxidant in there and a couple of flavourings and a bit of paprika, but not too much. When you look at the light and extra light versions, they've got hundreds of ingredients in them that I really don't like the look of. Okay. Mustard. I've got a selection of mustard. We've also got right at the back tahini for when I make hummus. I'm actually a bit lazy about making hummus, but sometimes I do like to do it, so yeah, I have that in there as well. Then lime pickle, which is my absolute favourite. I have that with poppadoms. And we've got various chutneys and jam. Also a jar of pasta sauce, which is always handy in the moment when I haven't actually prepared anything. And I love to have lemon juice and lime juice in there because I don't always have fresh lemons and limes. Right, so next shelf. We've got some no alcohol beer actually. Now often that is alcohol beer, but we went away for half term, so now I think this week needs a little bit less alcohol in it. Okay, so we've got, I mentioned I've got my overnight oats. That's what we had for breakfast this morning, so I usually keep some Greek yogurt in there. This is leftovers from the night before, so that is bolognese in there, and I'm going to have that for my lunch today. We've got some mushrooms, and actually that in the back there is goose fat. Which I never ever use, but just sits there in the back of my cupboard. It's actually fairly high in good fats, despite being solid at room temperature. And so it is quite useful, and it tastes really good if you do roast potatoes in it, but I don't very often do roast potatoes because I'm a bit lazy. So it just kind of sits there in the back of my fridge. Right, next for shelf, I've got in the back here, I've got some dried fruit, dried apricots, dried prunes, and also some dried cranberries. I really like to add those to porridges and things like that. Also do curries and tagines with those apricots. Apricots are really high in iron, so they're a great source of iron, particularly for women who need a little bit extra. They're a great source of fibre too, but because they're a fruit, they've got vitamin C in them, so the iron from it is really well absorbed. Okay, I've got here in my hand some wholemeal tortillas. My kids love chili wraps, but actually this one is one that doesn't have any palm oil in it. So I did search high and low, and I managed to find some with rapeseed oil instead of palm oil, which is really important because my kids are really on that palm oil thing. Palm oil is also not particularly healthy either. Okay, so we've got in here chocolate. I eat quite a lot of chocolate, so these two are the ones that I'm into at the moment, but it does vary. They're dark chocolate, but they've got flavours in them as well, and I just love to have some in the evening while I'm watching TV. What else have I got in the back there? Oh, some butter. So while I sometimes have branded foods, I also go for Smart Price Basics range of things where it doesn't really affect the flavour or the ingredients. So I've done my testing. I bought a really expensive, hand churned, salted, butter that was supposed about £2.50 or £3 for the same size block. This one's about £1.50. And I really couldn't tell the difference, so I always buy the Smart Price butter. Some things I'm brand loyal to. Marmite, I really like Marmite. It's the best tasting one. So yeah, that's what I get. But, and I did try out the Sainsbury's own brand and it just wasn't quite the same. So I do mix and match. Right, this is the leftover salad from the night before, which is looking a little bit limp now, but I probably still will eat it for lunch. We've got some salmon and some chicken there in the back. I've got some new potatoes, which actually you're not supposed to keep in the fridge. I don't know why they're in the fridge. These are Jersey Royals, which my kids picked out for some reason, but they do taste really nice. But it's best not to keep potatoes in the fridge because when you then cook them at high temperatures, harmful compounds can be formed. So it's best to keep them in a cool, dark place. Now actually these ones I'm not going to be cooking at hugely high temperatures. I'm just going to be boiling them or steaming them. But if you were going to roast them or fry them or chip them, you should not keep them in the fridge. And then I've got some milks. I have skimmed milk. I can't bear really creamy milk. And then there's this really sad banana, which looks a bit horrible, but actually it's going to be perfect for making banana bread. So that's probably what I'm going to do. Or I might make some banana and oat cookies with that. The odd ripe banana does end up hanging around in our fridge for a while, specifically for that purpose. And sometimes I get round to it and sometimes I don't, but it's always there in my mind. And then we've got the vegetable drawers. So there's one lonely carrot in there, some courgette, broccoli, green beans, a red pepper and some cabello nero. So I always have plenty of green vegetables because I absolutely love them. And then this is the salad drawer. We've got some onions and tomatoes and what else is that? Parsley, lettuce and some spring onions. So this is making salads like the basics of a salad. Lettuce, cucumber, tomato, some spring onion, and then to that salad, as you can see in here actually, which is looking obviously not as nice as it was before, but there's capers and olives in there and red peppers and stuff, and I think there's actually some pine nuts in there too, and that just makes it taste really really nice compared to the boring lettuce, cucumber and tomato. Okay, door, eggs. I've got some organic eggs up there. I do actually always buy organic eggs. I don't always buy organic meat or vegetables. If I can afford it, I will. But organic eggs I do because I know there's got really high welfare standards for organic eggs, so I do always buy them. However, there is a much greater risk, although the risk is still small, of getting salmonella from organic eggs because they aren't routinely treated with antibiotics. So if you are pregnant, it's actually better to go for non-organic eggs just in case, because it lowers the risk of contracting salmonella, although salmonella is quite rare these days anyway. Okay, and then we have cheddar cheese. So again, you know, I said I go for smart price stuff. Actually, I really like this basic version of cheddar cheese and we get through quite a lot of it. So I buy a huge block of it and actually it's really nice and cheap. Okay, and then we've got some chocolate. This is actually left over from Easter, so we're not doing too badly. We haven't eaten that much. So that actually belongs to the children and they just get to have some for pudding or occasionally here and there if they want some. Okay, now this is my condiments shelf. I actually hate most of these condiments. They are for barbecues and things. Like all of these barbecue sauces I think are disgusting. I never eat them. But they usually do get eaten when we have barbecues. This one is really fiery and that's great to add to mayonnaise and things like that to give it an extra kick. Tomato puree, we've got some sweet chili sauce which I love for making quesadillas. This one's quite good actually, it's a burger sauce, I quite like that. Ketchup and I don't know, another barbecue sauce which is really horrible. Okay, and that's pretty much it. We've got some milk in there and some fizzy water. So that is my fridge. Now I'm going to head over to my cupboards. It's actually a jar of cookies that we made the other day. I'm not a great baker, but we did bake some cookies and actually they turned out okay. Right, in my cupboards. Cupboards are much less organised compared to the fridge. Okay, so we've got stock cubes and things in here. We have vegetable stock there. We've got some cocoa powder behind there. This is all the baking stuff up there, which I can barely reach, but things like food colouring and baking powder and that kind of stuff. This one is my nuts, seeds and raisins section. These ones are really good actually. These are broad beans. They're not healthy at all, but they are really nice if you add them to salads at the top. Got some pistachio nuts, some sesame seeds, you use those in stir fries. Some walnuts, which I really like adding to cereals and things, and some almonds in there. Okay, up we go. So the next basket along is spices. Now I do actually have a spice rack over there, and I refill the jars all the time, so it's better for recycling and that kind of thing. So I just buy the bags of spices. Well, I use quite a lot because I make a lot of curries and things. So it's quite economical to buy large packets of this. So we've got some mustard seeds. These ones were some spices that I got brought back from India. Some chili, black pepper, so there's all sorts of stuff in there. Okay, now then I have in this section, this is kind of like the loosely breakfast, I suppose. We've got oat cakes, which I really like for snacks. We've got some Sainsbury's own brand whole grain Wheaties. I don't like them, but my little boy really likes them sometimes. Again, not especially healthy, but he really likes them. We usually have them with yogurt or something. Got some muesli. This is my favourite muesli that I found, and I'm not supposed to name check things, but this particular one, and I do not work for Sainsbury's at all, but I do think that good products should get recommended. And this is the Sainsbury's own brand fruit, nut and seed muesli. And the reason I like it, it doesn't have any added sugar. It tastes nice and sweet because it's got some fruit in it. It's got loads of seeds and nuts and whole grains. It's just really delicious. And I'm a bit of a muesli snob, and often it's difficult to find good tasting muesli that doesn't have masses of sugar added to it. So this is a really good one, and we might have that with yogurt for breakfast. Okay, we've got peanut butter in there. That is the 100% peanut butter, so there's no palm oil or sugar or anything added to that. It does taste a little bit different to the general like Sunpat varieties, but I actually really like it. It's great, and it's really healthy. It's nice and good for you. It's good, high in protein. Okay, then we have Posh cocoa. Now that is really expensive cocoa, but it is untreated, so it means that it does preserve. It's got lots of the polyphenols preserved in it. So sometimes if I'm having a hot chocolate at night, that's the one I use. I don't really use it for baking so much. I use the other one for baking because this one, you can really tell the difference if you're making a hot chocolate out of it. But in a cake, you can't really tell. So, okay, and then we've got honey. Again, basics honey, jam. That's the low salt Marmite. I mentioned Marmite earlier because it's one of my favourite things, and that is the low salt one. And I am really sensitive to taste, so if something doesn't taste as good, I generally don't eat it. But this low salt version of the yeast extract spread is really good, and I tried the Sainsbury's one and it just wasn't as good. And I really can't tell the difference between this one and the full salt one. Marmite is just brilliant. It's got loads of B vitamins in it. It's so tasty. You only need a little bit goes a really long way. Okay, and then we've got some homemade marmalade, which I made ages ago, and these ones are kind of picked up from a hotel. And then I'm going to see behind here. So we've got lots of sugar-free squashes, which are really, they're quite nice. I really like sugar-free squash, and the kids like it as well, which is good. So as it starts to get hotter, it's nice to make water a bit more interesting for them. Okay, here we go. We've got lots and lots of different types of vinegar. Some people, like my husband, might actually say too much vinegar. Okay, so we've got white wine vinegar, red wine vinegar, rice wine, just normal vinegar for chips, white vinegar, which actually I just use for household things like stain removal and that kind of thing rather than eating. Balsamic vinegar, soy sauce, and then various types of oils. So that's a stir-fry oil, a walnut oil. Oh, there's another white wine vinegar in the back there. Maybe I do have too much vinegar. And then we've got some fish sauce in the back, some sesame oil, and what's this one? Oh, and some mirin. So I use things like that. This is almost like my stir-fry and dressing cupboard, I guess. And that's that cupboard. And I've just got one more cupboard to show you, and that is the larder. So here we are at my larder. It's a bit dark, actually. But I do have a light in here, but it doesn't show up very well. There's my recipe books at the top there, which I barely use. The two that I use the most, actually, this Madder Jaffrey one here, which is lovely. It's called Curry Easy. I absolutely love it. Every single recipe I've tried from there is brilliant. This one's a really interesting one, The Science of Good Cooking. I use that as a kind of bit of background reading. It does have recipes in it as well, but it's good if you're a bit nerdy about food. We've got some other ones. There's a few things in the Nigella Express, but most of them are about quick recipes. Actually, this one is really good, the Flavour Thesaurus.
If you're not sure about if you want to start going a bit off-piste from recipes, the flavour thesaurus is brilliant because it tells you what flavours go together, and it really helps you build up a kind of a pattern of what you can. So if you've got no food in the house apart from some really odd ingredients, you can put them together and make something really gourmet. So yeah, that's good. Okay, and then this is my sort of tins shelf. We've got beans and things for chilies and curries, coconut milk. We've got also some tins of tomatoes. We've got tins of fish here, tinned mackerel. That's really nice for making mackerel pate. It's really high in omega-3, so I really always keep that in the house. Kids love it too. And then we've got UHT milk, which I use for making yogurt actually sometimes when I do. I have got a yogurt maker up there, which I do most of the time in order to sort of save plastic really, because we get through a lot of yogurt in this house. And these are very easily recycled, whereas the yogurt pots tend not to be as recycled. Okay, and then we've got some decaf tea, we've got some coffee in the back there, some vegetable oil. There's a bag of oats, and that's the top up from the muesli. Risotto rice, noodles, pasta. Actually up there, that basket is actually my sugar basket. It's just full of different types of sugar. There's more sugar than you would expect a dietitian to have, and I don't use it very often, but when I do use it, I use it. So like when we made biscuits the other day, we used it, and it's actually overflowing. You can see, I don't know if you can see that, but there's golden syrup and icing sugar there as well. And we've got flour in the corner. This is not so organised either, is it? So we've got flour in the corner, and this is bread flour and bread making things. So I make my bread. This is my bread machine. I make my bread because I'm a bread snob and I just prefer it. And then we've got things like lentils. This is oats, so various types of lentils, popcorn, rice. In the back there's pasta and things, chickpeas, and that's pretty much my cupboard. So now you know what a dietitian keeps in her cupboards, and really I do practice what I preach. I eat really balanced meals, I have chocolate, and I have a basket full of sugar. So it's not about being 100% perfect, it's about enjoying food and having things in moderation and balance. So one square of chocolate is never enough for me, and just one type of sugar is not enough either. So I like to have a good variety. So now please go away, enjoy your food, and try and get some balanced meals. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel. I'll be doing lots more. And if you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the box below.